Well, today, my friend Mona and I are going to be doing something kind of fun and kind of unusual. She's in New York and I'm in Washington, and we're going to be using technology to help us answer questions that a friend of hers has given us to answer. The goal is that we make a video that can be shown to that friend's class in the fall. And so here we go, trying to do this, and we'll see how it comes out. I apologize in advance if the transitions are a little kludgy, but you know, we're still learning, right? We're all learning here, and it's better to try and not be perfect than not to try at all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on the question. And the first question, pretty basic one, is what is MS? Well, gosh, you know, doesn't that sound like it ought to be an easy question? But if you have MS, you know all too well, this is not an easy question. I think that most experts would agree that MS, multiple sclerosis, is what they call a neurodegenerative disease. So in other words, your nervous system, your central nervous system in particular, your brain and your spinal cord, are degenerating. So the myelin sheath, the coating that surrounds the nerves, is degenerating, and when it does, to an extent that is beyond the body's ability to rebound, we start to lose transmission, like an electrical system, right? We start to lose the transmission of signals, and so we're not able to perform the functions that we think we ought to be able to perform. So, okay, it's a neurodegenerative disease. We're all kind of clear on that. But the mechanism by which that actually happens, oh, that is so open for discussion. It is considered by many to be an autoimmune disease. So, in other words, it's a disease in which your body's own cells that are supposed to be protecting you against infections and intruders of various kinds, those cells turn on the body and start attacking the nervous system, the myelin sheathing that surrounds your nerves. So that's probably fairly standard. Most people would say that's how MS sort of works, the mechanism. Also, it's called an inflammatory disease. You might hear that. And I think that that kind of flows right from the idea of autoimmune. If your body's being attacked, whether it's from something internal or something external, inflammation is often a response that the body will do to try to counteract whatever's happening. But that inflammation for us is really tricky because it can exacerbate the symptoms that we are having. So MS, yeah, mysterious thing. Nobody knows what causes it. Nobody knows what can cure it or even halt it. Many studies have been done. Many medicines are out there on the market, therapies, different things, injectables, pills, infusions, herbal remedies, diet modifications, exercise regimens, yoga. I mean, you name it. Somebody has proposed it as a way to combat MS.
What does it feel like to live with MS? Not an easy question, but I have lived with this thing for 35 years. When I first was diagnosed and knew I had it, life was pretty easy. You know, I had a limp and I used a cane to get around, not a big deal. But then time went on, and as it went on, I went from a cane to crutches to a rollator, which is a walker, to now a wheelchair. So that is what happens. Your life very slowly becomes more and more disabled. And you feel like you're working with half a body, which is exactly what's happening here. So life is hard. It was easy, and it got progressively harder over the years. Now I'm in a wheelchair because my legs do not work. And I am sick and tired of trying to make them work. Because it's hard. The brain up here is dictating everything I do. So it's become harder and harder to live with MS. I keep a sense of humor and I try to be positive, and that is what keeps me going, I think. I'm not totally sure, but I think that's what does it.
Or emotion when you were first diagnosed. Well, I can go first.
You go first.
Kind of strange. When I was diagnosed, and same for you really, it was in the early 1980s, and there was no real good diagnostic technology for MS. I mean, they were saying, okay, if this happens and this happens also, then perhaps it's MS. But they did not want to tell us it was MS because they didn't have any medicines or any treatments or anything. And nothing a doctor hates worse than to tell you have some big disease and then not have anything for you to do. So they didn't want to tell me for years. Well, it felt like years. I don't know how long it was, but for a long time, doctor after doctor would kind of skate around it and not tell me. And then finally, I saw a doctor who told me I had MS, and I thanked him, and he was shocked. He said, "What do you mean, thank you?"
So that was your emotion.
Well, I was relieved, yeah, but he was surprised because he thought, well, aren't you going to cry? And I said, well, no, actually, I'm relieved because I've known for a long time that I had MS, but nobody would tell me. So I was actually, I don't know, maybe other emotions kicked in later, but my first initial emotion was relieved. So what about you?
Confusion. Total and absolute confusion, because the week before that, my friend Mary, who I was just talking to, and I were sitting in Biology 101, and we saw the words multiple sclerosis. And we laughed because nobody could say it.
Oh.
And now all of a sudden, they're saying I had this thing. I was so confused. I had no idea what it was. I felt fine. I just ran 5 miles. I had no emotion, to be honest. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved. I just didn't know what I felt in the beginning.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of support for folks with MS either at the time.
Nothing. No. And I was the only one in my college who had MS. Yeah. Now, I know at least 5 people in the same college.
Yep.
Who were diagnosed.
Sad to say, I think the diagnostics are better. And also, I just wonder if there aren't more cases of it. It's kind of a sad thing, but I wonder if that isn't the case. Well, do we want to go on then to question 4?
Yeah, 4.
Okay. I think that's your question. What kinds
of adjustments you've had to make in your own life? Not easy to answer, because this is how I see it. Day 1, year 35. All this time, all these things happened. I started with a cane. I moved on to crutches. I used a rollator, which is a walker, and now I'm in a wheelchair. That is what happened. Those are the adjustments I had to make over 35 years. I had to learn how to use different things. I had to figure out how to get from point A to point B every single day. So mine was mostly mobility.
So what about from the emotional side of it, though? I mean, did you have to throw over a lot of your goals and dreams and things you like to do?
Yeah, I suppose I did. And I think that was because I was made, or they thought I should be more afraid than I was.
More afraid?
Yeah, because I had a mess.
Yeah.
And so I can't aim high. But nobody said much.
What do you mean by they? You mean like the doctors or your friends or who?
Mostly doctors, not my friends, just the administration in college, that kind of thing. But I continued to aim high and do what I could do.
Right.
Not realizing that one day I would be like this.
Well, but think of all the things that you did do, right? You wrote a book and published it, and you went down to North Carolina for your college reunion with your friends. You know, those are things that not just any old person's going to do.
No, I was just talking to a friend who reminded me I went to graduate school. I got my master's in a very tough field. And I went to good school. Yeah, accomplishments.
That's right.
But we both have tenacity and determination. It's in our DNA.
Absolutely true. Yes. I think about what Dr. Swank said, that if you came across somebody who claimed to have MS, but they were kind of, not very ambitious and didn't really focus on accomplishments and achievement in their lives, he would have serious doubts that they had MS.
Exactly.
Everyone he knew that had MS was a type A person that, was very, driven, maybe.
Yeah.
Wanted to achieve things. Yeah. And you and I are good examples, I think, of that, for sure.
I think so. It's not a bad thing.
No.
It's just that we often went through hell doing it.
Yeah, it was harder in some ways.
And in the process, there was stress and there was this and that, but we did.
Yeah. Well, we didn't give up, right?
You wrote a book.
Yeah. I wrote a book. Well, I got a whole bunch of them that are just sitting in the drawer. I haven't finished some of them, but I don't know, maybe someday. But I'm on to other things. I guess that's it. And you and I both, right? We go on to different things. We're never done learning. We're never done trying things.
No.
I like an expression that I've been hearing a lot lately: progress, not perfection. And that just seems like it's a good way for us to look at life. We aren't going to be perfect. That's okay.
Yeah. Just do what we can do.
That's
okay.
Right.
Can you answer number 5?
Okay. What does a bad day feel like? Well, again, I think you and I both should take a crack at this one, but I'll go first because I was thinking about this. For me, a bad day is sometimes physical, but more often than not, it's more, just feeling kind of frustrated or disappointed or, unhappy in some way, because I know that the old me could have said yes, could have taken on that thing, could have accepted that challenge, could have aspired to various things, could have kept the commitment, could have invested in friendships and other relationships, to a much greater degree than I can now. I really have to watch my energy, and that's physical, but it's also emotional energy. I can't just, like wear myself to nothing because it's just not pretty.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I know I have physical things, but to me, day to day, it's really the emotional that's worse.
Okay. For me, actually, the physical is the worst part. The emotional comes in there, sure. But it begins with when I get up. I just know. When I have to get out of my bed, get into my wheelchair, and I miss. And then I'm on the floor trying to figure out how to get up. Never works. I have to wait. And I call David. And he has to come in there, pick me off the floor, put me back in the chair. Then I go to the stairwell and I tell myself to be very careful. I pull myself up and I try to get on the stairs. And if that doesn't work, it's happened.
Yeah.
I know I'm having a bad day.
Yep.
Those are just two physical examples.
Right. Well, but would you say that you have noticed that you're having cognitive issues as well, or is it mostly physical?
Mostly physical.
Yeah, that's true for me as well. As far as the cognitive, I don't really feel like I could. Well, I'm sure I've lost stuff. If you look at a picture of my brain, it looks like Swiss cheese. You kind of wonder, how's this woman can do anything?
Yeah, I know. Same here. Same
But
here.
I am endlessly fascinated, and I marvel at the brain and the ability of the brain to just reroute, right? As if one thing is damaged, it says, well, fine, I'm just going to route to it in a different way. I feel like I can do pretty much what I used to be able to do cognitively, but I have noticed the processing speed is lower. And I did used to think that I was a multitasker. They say that's a myth, but I don't know. I felt like I really could kind of handle multiple things going at the same time. Now, no way. No way. My frustration threshold is a lot lower than it used to be. Is that true for you as well?
Yeah, I agree. I cannot take confusion. I cannot take stress. I cannot take multitasking. I can't do any of those things.
Yeah.
If I have 2 projects for the day, they better get done that day.
Yeah.
Because I cannot stand not finishing things.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. I don't know if I'm quite at that point. I agree with you that when the morning comes, I sit down and I say, what are the most important things to do today? And I limit myself to, 3 or maybe more than that if they're really tiny. But as far as major things, no more than 1 or 2. But I have a lot more grace for myself. If I don't finish, I don't finish. I found that out. I just cannot hold myself to the highest of standards like I used to.
Right.
It doesn't do me any good. Plus, it puts me in a really nasty mood, and my poor husband has to deal with it. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So, I've set my expectations lower for myself.
That's a hard thing to change.
It is. I know. It wasn't my way. That's for sure. I've always had very high expectations of myself, and I don't hold other people to anywhere near the standard I hold myself to.
Right.
But I'm learning to be more realistic. I look at my track record, basically. If I put too many items on my to-do list, I know they're not going to get done. So why am I setting myself up to fail?
Right.
I have a feeling you and I are pretty similar, really, if it comes right down to it. We are pretty similar in that.
Do you have OCD?
Oh, as someone who really has OCD would slap me silly if I said I thought I did. But I think that things have to be a certain way, a lot more so than they used to. When I know, when I was younger in my 20s and even into my 30s, I was a lot more, we can deal with whatever, but not now. I mean, it is amazing to me how it's like, okay, if you're sitting, let's say you're sitting in church or you're sitting in some like public gathering thing, and you're supposed to be being quiet and good, and you notice that you have like a dog hair on your pants, you cannot not pick the dog hair off your pants. It's just like, it totally absorbs my mind until I get that done. And, from what I know of OCD, that's kind of how people with OCD are. It's like it dominates what they are thinking. They can't ignore it. They can't say, no big deal. They lose all perspective on that. And I guess I sort of relate. Maybe I could say I have sympathy for people with OCD more than that I really have OCD, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but then I started thinking about myself. If I drop something, instead of letting it just go, for God's sakes, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm reaching over to pick something up.
Even though you know better.
I know better. The whole thing tips over. And now
no.
on the floor again. Trying to figure out how to get up.
And what you dropped wasn't even that big a deal, right? Yeah. We like my story about dropping that plastic thing outside in the wind, and I was afraid it was going to blow, and so of course I reach over to grab it, and of course I fall, right? Like, duh. I don't know. And the thing wasn't even that important. So what if it blew down the road? It doesn't matter. But I don't know. The brain is weird that way with MS. But you referred earlier to having a sense of humor, and I just want to take a minute to say, yes, that is like so key as a coping strategy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what we do without it.
Look at Phil.
I know. He's amazing. But he was the one, he always kept us kind of grounded, right? In some of our meetings, we'd start to kind of get into that sort of complaining mode, like, woe is me. He always had a way just saying some funny thing just to pull us back.
Yeah. He
was so funny. And then we were talking about doing that book, remember, of humorous things that happened to us. We thought they were hilariously funny, but, they probably wouldn't be funny to other people at all. Like the time that I overdosed by accident on the carbamazepine.
Oh, the shower.
I was in the shower. My legs just kind of collapsed. And I just kind of fell on the ground in the shower. And then I couldn't get out. And I'm banging on the wall for my husband to come. He doesn't hear me. I just thought that was hysterical.
Oh, God.
Even at the time, I thought it was hysterical.
You have to laugh.
You do, but, other people would just be horrified at that. Okay, that was a digression, but I think it was important. It wasn't on the list here, but a good question would have been, what are your coping strategies for MS? And that, to me, is like number one. Number one. So, okay, what are we up to now? We are up to...
Discrimination?
Yes. You know what? I'd really like you to talk about that, because you're going to tell your story, aren't you? Because I really think you should.
Yes. When I was 25 years old, and I was sassy and still running around like a maniac, and I just got my little thing that you hang on the rear view. It's called the decal handicap, the blue ticket thing. Well, it took me a long time to get that, and I got it. And a cop actually questioned me while I was sitting in the car, he said, "Why are you parked in the handicap?" And I knew I was going to lose it, but I pointed to my decal and I said, "I belong in this spot." "But no, ma'am, you don't look disabled." I lost it. I hope I never see a cop again. Because I said, "You know what, officer? You don't look stupid either."
Oh, no.
And then I realized what I said, and I just slammed on the accelerator and I flew out of it.
I love that story. If we ever do write that book, that's going to have to be the first story.
I was beside myself with.
I can imagine. Now, the thing is, my mom raised me to be polite. So I probably wouldn't have had the guts to say what you just said.
Oh,
that's why I love it.
I hightailed out of there and went all the way home.
Oh, no.
And I said, "Oh my God, I'm about to be arrested. Oh no."
Well, I don't have any stories that are of that caliber as well. But the thing is, I've noticed, I don't even know if I'd call this discrimination, but the people who know I have MS, some of them are overly solicitous, like, "Oh no, don't do that, let me do that for you," or you shouldn't do that, that's too hard, or you're gonna have this or that happen, like being out in the hot sun or whatever. I understand where they're coming from, and they're very sweet, and that's all great, but I don't know that that's helpful for me to be mollycoddled like that. I guess I'm too independent. I would rather know my own limits, and if I exceed them, it's my bad. I was dumb and I shouldn't have done that. I don't need somebody else to baby me.
The only other discriminatory thing I can think of is being in Walgreens in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And the pharmacist never looked at me.
Oh.
Talked to David the whole time.
I have heard that happened, so you've had that actually happen to you.
I couldn't believe it. It wasn't the pharmacist, it was the woman who was doing the register and so on. Shocked. I couldn't.
Well, they ought to know better by now. I mean, when that happened to you with the policeman, that was years and years ago, but
I was sassy back then. 25.
You are still sassy.
Oh, God.
Just got to catch you in the right frame of mind. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we're on our last question, right?
What are you looking for from caregivers? I just think it's important to talk about Maya's last question, which was, how can nurses help us? Well,
okay.
Well, here's the thing. Pam gave a great introduction as to what we're about. And you have to remember that we come in all flavors. We are, okay, she walks, I don't walk, somebody else may do both. No, walk and walk. How do you know what to do? We're complex, very complex, but remember that our intelligence is not affected, but the way we process information is. We're slower, and also please remember we're very temperature sensitive.
Yes, that is true.
In other words, for me, if it's too hot, too humid, my speech will slur, and that happened during the talk. But if it's cool and manageable, we're better than we are when it's hot and not manageable. So
That's right.
I'm getting around today just fine. I'm loving it. It's cool outside. It's not humid outside. And I can think better. I can process things better. I have not fallen. Blah, blah, blah. So, in other words, for the nurses who are to become nurses, keep in mind, please, you can talk to us. We love to talk to you. Ask us what we need, whether we're having a good day or a bad day. How does that work? Ask us. Please do not hesitate to ask us. We will tell you what we need. Okay?
You should be able to tell by now that we like to talk.
Yeah, we love to talk. We have told you some real life stories, what we go through, and, mobility, cognition. And when my speech slurs, you might think, oh boy, something is wrong with her mind. She's not. That's not true. Okay, so there is a question. We talked about that. I think that's very important. And that's good. Nurses should understand that if we can't move a certain way, it's because we can't.
Right.
So let us go through our process and not have somebody push in too much.
Okay.
Give us time.
I like that, yeah.
And don't yell and act like we're deaf.
Right. And I don't like to play the MS card. We might want to talk about that a little bit. I mean, how do you feel about that when you know that it could all be cleared up if you just told people, hey, I have MS, but you just hate to say it?
If clarification is needed, then you can say it.
Yeah.
It's better to let somebody know you have it than act drunk.
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, I guess I'm just awfully stubborn. Maybe I just, don't want to get people feeling sorry for me. And that's kind of the reaction. It's like when people hear you have MS, they go, oh, you poor thing. No, no. Everybody has something, right? I mean, MS, as far as we know, does not shorten your lifespan. They thought it did at first, but now they realize people with MS live as long as people who don't.
Yeah.
And there are far, far worse things you can have. I would not want to have like ALS, maybe.
ALS.
Blood cancers, bone cancers.
Yeah.
There are so many worse things.
Yeah. So I hope we have helped people to understand what this thing is.
Yeah. Well, as much as they can understand. I mean, I think in this short conversation, we haven't really even been able to cover everything, but those were good questions to get us started anyway. And I actually appreciate the chance to talk to those questions. Well, your memoir was titled The Shifting Creek, right? And I think it's still a really great metaphor for your MS journey. The creek has just shifted again.
Yes. Absolutely.
I think my metaphor would be more the Colorado River. I don't know if you're familiar with the Colorado River, but they've been taking so much out of it for irrigation. It's just like a little mud hole in parts, and it used to be a great river. But I kind of feel like that, that the energy is just like going down and down and down, and it's like a trickle of what it used to be. So that's maybe the big frustration for me. And the last thing, you just want to do some kind of wrap up at the end, right?
Just a quick wrap up to explain to all of you students that you find a lot of people like us out there. There are a lot of people with MS. God knows, and they're very young. A lot of them are very young. And please know this. It's one of the most disabling conditions for young people. I was diagnosed at 20 years old. Pam, you were
25.
Diagnosed at 25. I'm now 56. She's in her 60s. This is how long a journey we've had with this. So we have stories. Just ask us. We have lots of stories to tell.
We do. And because we've had it for so long, and it's right at the beginning of the whole MS thing with medicines and diagnostics and whatnot, we kind of are like a summary of the history of MS treatment. You were on beta-seron for a while, and that is really not hugely used anymore. And I was on Copaxone for 10 years. We've looked at some different ones. Now they're talking about that horrible brain disease PML that you can get from some of the therapies, and yuck.
And we try to laugh and keep a sense of humor about all of this.
Yes,
and it's not easy.
Well, it's easier than being gloomy, right?
Absolutely.
For me anyway. It takes more energy to be gloomy than to be happy. So I figure I'll do the happy thing. Well, I want to thank you, Mona, because you invited me to help you out with this. And I appreciate being a part of it. I think it's a really neat thing to be doing. And it's good for us.
Yeah.
To be like we're doing something good, right?
I can't thank you enough. And, I hope that Maya's class was able to think this was helpful to them. But don't be afraid of us.
Yeah,
Ask
please
us.
don't.
We love to talk.
Wouldn't we be available for further conversation if they have a question or they want to know more?
Of course.
Good. All right.
I'm going to let Maya know we're available.
Yeah.
Just get in touch.
Great. Okay. Very good then.
All
right. Well, everybody, do well in your studies and be the future nurses this country needs so much.
Good luck to you all. Thank you. Thank you, Maya.